What's up everyone? If you're anything like me, then you want to work smarter and not harder. In this video, I'm going to show you a bunch of improvements I made to our darkroom area here in hopes to get you thinking about ways to streamline your own business. Whether it's a dentist office or a darkroom, there's so many ways to be more efficient, but it all boils down to seeing the different kinds of wastes and making continuous effort to improve it. Some waste, like a misprint, is pretty obvious, but the result of making every process safer and simpler and faster is that quality goes up and mistakes and just overall effort goes down. So yeah, I spent the morning in our darkroom fixing a bunch of little things that bug me because it's the little improvements that make room for the big improvements. And as promised, I got the camera out so you can tag along. So let's get in here and get started because I got a bunch of stuff on my list. Okay, first I'm going to stick some Kaizen Corners. This is an idea from FastCap, and they sell a ready-made product for this too, which I'll link to. But we have a vinyl plotter in-house, so I made some ourselves to keep in stock. The corners are a great way to mark things out, obviously, but they've always seemed a little trivial to me. Only after trying them out did I realize how flexible they are and how much they help with precision. So it just saves the spot, just like the shadow foam does, but it's a cheap little sticker. I always procrastinated marking stuff out with tape or doing it with the foam because it's just so much less forgiving. But the Kaizen Corners are a way easier way to start planning layouts because of how easy they are to apply and to move around as you figure out exactly where you want something to be. I've got a bunch of things in the darkroom here that I think could benefit from the corners, so that's one of the first improvements I'm gonna make here. Anything that moves regularly or needs to move to clean behind it is gonna get some corners. And I also cut down this mat. It was a bit of a trip hazard because it was bigger than it needs to be, hanging into the walkway area here. And this is a great example of why the corners are so good, because when the mat moves like this for cleaning, it has an exact spot it goes back to, no ambiguity. Next is these sensors, because we have a bunch of smart stuff in the shop, like sensors and switches and some tablets to monitor what's going on as well. This is more of my own interest because I love automation and programming, even though I only know just enough to be dangerous. I use an open source platform called Home Assistant, but when it breaks or has an issue, I'm the doctor, and that's not really sustainable for any business, really. So in this case, a fancy computer program breaks the safety, quality, simplicity, and speed hierarchy for most of what it does here. If the Smart Shop is something you want to see more of, definitely let me know in the comments. One of the tablets I mentioned is in the darkroom, and it needs to get officially mounted. So that's what I'm going to do. Now, of course, mounting this thing turned into a bunch of cable management that I couldn't ignore. Definitely distracted by that, but it looks a lot better now, and I labeled some stuff as well. Now, I know it's far from perfect, but nothing is hanging loose anymore, and there's not going to be any confusion about which power bar is on the smart switch or not now that I labeled them, so it's a win. And fun little fact here, this is actually the tablet that originally came with that exposure unit over there. Now, thinking about this tablet and the exposure unit means my next task is going to be some small improvements to the exposure area. You might be able to tell this unit is a little different than the way they come out of the box, because it doesn't matter if a piece of equipment is brand new or used when it comes into the shop. When it arrives here, that's the worst it'll ever be. There have been a ton of improvements to our exposure unit to make it easier to use, especially when the screen machine came in. So again, if you're interested in the modifications and the logic behind them, then let me know in the comments. I can make a video about that too. But today, I want to improve the cable management in the back since it was kind of hanging, and we have a robot vacuum that comes in here now. Also, I guess I was trying to keep it simple by reusing the original lid from the unit, but the vacuum blanket would drag on screens passing through, so I wanted to remove the original lid, and first I just had to check that a screen would clear smoothly, right? And it did. So I added a little back wall to it as well. More on that next, but you can see here that it gave me an opportunity to do some extra cable management for the stuff sitting on the exposure unit. so I've been putting whiteboards all over the place here for various reasons, mostly for visual cues and taking notes. I wanted to standardize a place for our exposure times and add a way to easily see the last time they were checked and changed. So I took a couple minutes, put a grid on this whiteboard, made some labels on magnets, and transferred all of our info over. Next, I made a process video for starting the exposure unit. And I've been trying hard to document processes with video, and starting with the simplest processes like this has just helped me get the hang of it. A process that's this simple still benefits though, because when you're training the next person, you might overlook simple aspects, like in this case that it's easier to double click the time to change it rather than highlight it and drag it and stuff like that. Okay, so now that I'm kind of done with the exposure area now, pushing this unit back into place is a great example of why the corners are so good, because I knew exactly where I had to go to line up with the screen machine and the dip tank on the other end. It's perfect. Another quick one here is automating the dehumidifier. These machines all come with their own sensor, but one of the first reasons I went down the Home Assistant rabbit hole is because I wanted to log the humidity in the darkroom over time. I wanted to see how it changes after coating, how it changes over time and through the seasons. But besides that, I noticed that even though our dehumidifier was set to say 30%, that it would still run continuously, even when the other sensors were reading way lower. So I trust these sensors way more than a machine that has an incentive to run more than it needs to, so that I have to buy another one. So I set it up to turn on and off based on the humidity sensor above the drying rack. And next we'll be getting the heater on the same sort of automation, because the temperature directly affects the humidity and the ability to dry screens quickly. Last but not least, I also added some tape around the screen machine, and this is because of the keyboard extension. It hangs out a little bit, and if you're looking at just the floor, you might bump into it. So this gives a visual cue on the floor, so when you're walking through that area, you can kind of see what's going on. So what do you think? Let's walk through this area to kind of wrap things up and see what it looks like now. So there it is, just a couple things that will make our darkroom flow better, look better, and hopefully get your gears turning about how to reduce some waste in your business. If you like this content, please let me know in the comments, and definitely subscribe for more, because I'm gonna keep filming what I'm up to in the shop, so there's definitely more to come.